And in this video, I want to explain a lot more about contract asset and contract liability. First page, I will put you an example that I found very interesting. For example, construction contract and long-term project. I entered into a non-conciliable agreement to build a customized equipment for $500 for XYZ. The agreement stipulates that they will receive 20% of after signing the agreement. I invoiced for 100K, but no work is done yet. So I received 100K in funds from the customer, but I have not already do some advance to the project. So I first of all I recognize a receivable of 100K, and that is an asset. And on the side of a liability, I recognize a contract liability for 100K. But when I receive the cash in advance for do the project, I debit cash from 1,100 and I credit receivable from the same amount. So receivable is cancelled. It's cancelled. Cancelled. So after that, it remains only the cash for the asset for 100K and the contract liability for 100K. So what is a contract liability? A contract liability is obligation to transfer goods or service, perform work, and then we already receive the funds, or then we have the unconditional promise to get money before start the work. That is a contract liability. After that, in the same context, I start the work. Okay, I incur costs, I hire people, etc. I purchase supplies and material. I incur 120K in cost for first quarter. Not 100K, but 120K. As I would say before, I cannot bill the client yet. So, in that scenario, I have to recognize revenue. So, I debit the contract liability for 100K. So, the previous liability is now does not exist yet, and I credit revenue for 100K. Okay, then with the previous 100K that I received from the client, I buy, that's an example, I buy material supplies asset for 100, and also that cash, no, I eliminate cash, so no cash before, no cash. So okay, and there are 20 remaining, so I debit the contract asset account that is unbilled account receivable, so I have not received the cash yet for 20,000, and I create also the revenue account for 20,000. After that, if then I bill the client for 20,000 and he accepts, then so the client sent me before 100K for do the project, but the project cost me about 120. So the client has to accept that, because as I said before, I entered into a non-cancelable agreement. So the client must accept the the amount of the project. Nobody cares what amount. So I bill the client for 20,000 and he accepts. And so then I create a contract asset. So that contract asset is matched, and I debit the accounts receivable. And when finally, after the criteria of the contract, the client gives me the cash, I debit the cash for 20,000 and credit the accounts receivable for 20,000. So in remaining, it only happens that it lasts cash for 20,000 and revenue for 20,000, and that revenue for 100 also. Okay. So in conclusion, we have right non-cancellable agreement, as I said before, to receive funds in exchange for goods or service that we already performed, but we cannot bill a claim at this time. This condition, so that type of asset and liabilities whose name is contract asset or contract liability, are only if the condition to bill a claim cannot be the passage of time. If the condition to bill a claim is a passage of time, is a receivable. It's not a contract asset or contract liability. Okay, that's all.